Good Erev Shabbos Parshas Beha'aloscha. This parsha is chock full. There's so much to speak about, and I want to focus on one of the famous parts of the parsha. They're all famous. One of the famous parts of the parsha, the misonanim, the complainers. Vayhi amki misonanim Rabbi aznei Hashem. The Torah says that Bnei Israel in the desert were complaining. They were complaining. They were krachzing. They were complaining against Hashem, and it was Ra be'oznei Hashem. Evil, bad in the ears of Hashem. So the whole phrase reads, Vayihi ha'am kimisonanim ra be'inei Hashem. And the people were complaining bad in the ears of Hashem. The Mefarshim struggle with the construction of this phrase. The people were complaining. Does it mean that what they were complaining was bad in the ears of Hashem, as it were? Or does it mean that they were complaining about bad stuff? Be'oznei Hashem, in the ears of Hashem. And if you take a look at the trup, the way we read the psukim, Vayihi ha'am kimisonanim, and the people were like as complaining, pause, Ra, it was bad, Be'inei Hashem. So it's not exactly clear. Is the Ra on the misonanim, or is the Ra modifying the complainers, or is the Ra modifying what was in the ears of Hashem? The Netziv looks at the pasuk and says the real anomaly in this pasuk is that it says it was bad in the ears of Hashem, ba'aznei Hashem. Why does it have to say that altogether? Vayhi ha'am kimisonanim, the people were complaining, it was bad. Where the people were complaining, period. Well, why does it have to say Ra ba'aznei Hashem, in the ears of Hashem? And the Netziv points out in his Hemek Davar that wherever we find the term be'oznei, it indicates a closeness, right? When you have to speak to somebody and you can speak into their ear, it means you're very close to them. Smuchim says the Netziv. So why is the Torah pointing out that the people were very close to Hashem over here? It's like they were whispering in his ear. So there are three ways to look at this. Number one, it indicates how really horrible the complaining was. Meaning that it's one thing to complain, as it were, behind Hashem's back, right? If it's one thing to cross the street and to jaywalk in the middle of the street when a person shouldn't jaywalk, I guess, and or to run through a red light in the middle of the night and there are no cars around. It's illegal. It's wrong. You shouldn't do it. There's another level of bad when there's a cop standing right next to you and you basically flaunt it and violate the law right in front of the cop. So with the Torah saying here, Vayhi kimisonanim ra be'oznei Hashem, they were doing this all, it was terrible, be'oznei Hashem, because they were right next to Hashem. They were in hearing distance. They could whisper in his ear. The Shekhinah was right there. And that's what makes this so egregious. There's a second part of this, which is that, says the Netziv, this is what explains what provoked an immediate response by Hashem. Hashem. And the very next part of the pasuk, Hashem heard this. Vativar bam esh. There was a divine fire, terribly causing havoc and tragedy amongst the people. So the first part of the pasuk, be'oznei Hashem, explains the second part of the pasuk, why there was this immediate response. God was right there, as it were. And so this immediate, this closeness of proximity provides an immediate consequence. Okay, so says the Netziv. There's another way of looking at this smuchin lahashmiya, that they were so close, and that is that sometimes this is not explaining how bad it was what they were doing. It explains why they were doing what they were doing. What do I mean by that? Sometimes when a person is so close to another person or to a situation, there is a sense of normalcy, and there is a sense of entitlement. Right? Familiarity doesn't necessarily breed contempt, but familiarity breeds entitlement. That is to say, that if I live in a home with running water and electrical lights, I assume that that's just how life is. Okay, there are parts in the world where people don't have running water or electric lights. It's hard for us to conceive of that, given the world in which we find ourselves. The sense of entitlement. I live in a world where if a person has a headache, they can take Tylenol or some other brand of pain reliever, and the headache goes away. I live in a world where if God forbid a person has some measure of illness, they can see a doctor, go to a hospital, and in the vast majority of cases, they are cured of their malady. That's the world in which we live. The familiarity, the closeness, creates a sense of normalcy, and this is what we're entitled to. This is what we're entitled to. And this, I believe, is what the Nitziv might be picking up on when he says that Oznei Hashem, that metaphor, smuchen lahashmiya. Hashem was so close, could literally almost whisper in his ear. The closeness is what is the cause for the complaining to begin with. Hashem is with Bnei Yisrael. Hashem is providing for Bnei Yisrael. Hashem is protecting Bnei Yisrael. Hashem took out Bnei Yisrael from Mitzrayim. Hashem did 10 plagues on behalf of Bnei Yisrael. Hashem helped the Bnei Yisrael cross the Red Sea miraculously. Hashem is in the desert with Bnei Yisrael, protecting them and providing them and giving them. And the Bnei Yisrael are complaining. Why? Because living the life of proximity to Hashem, in this case, the familiarity breeds entitlement. And this is what the response of Hashem is. No, we're not entitled to this. We're lucky to have this. We're blessed to have this. It's not a sense of entitlement. Ra. You know what was the cause of the misonanim? What was the bad? The bad was be'oznei Hashem. They were so close to Hashem that it bred a sense of familiarity, of normalcy, of entitlement. And finally, I'd like to suggest one other approach. Rabbi Oznei Hashem, Mefarshim explain, Ra very often, the Oznaim L'Torah says this, Ra very often is a way of describing Avodah Zarah, idol worship. If you look throughout the Navi, we'll see very often, at least in various points, and Hashem, it was Ra be'enei Hashem. What the people were doing was evil, was bad in the eyes of Hashem. And the Ra be'enei Hashem is Avodah Zarah. Says the Oznayim LaTorah, Nira shenafla bahem machsheves Avodah Zarah. It seems that the Jewish people right here in the desert were beginning to ruminate and to fantasize about Avodah Zarah, about idol worship. And this, Vayihi ha'am ki misonanim ra be'oznei Hashem. The element of their complaint, the element of their issues with Hashem was just be'oznei Hashem. Only God could hear it. It was like a dog whistle. Only a dog could hear it. Lahavdil. So on that frequency, only a dog can hear it. Lahavdil, the people's complaints here, the people's issue was that they were pining for their old pagan ways. They were pining to get back to their idol worship. They were pining for that Mitzrayim experience. Now, they didn't act on it, good, and they didn't even speak of it, good, but they were thinking. And when it comes to, and therefore was only be'oznei Hashem, Hashem was the only one who heard it, because it was in their minds and thoughts. And it happens to be, says the Oznayim LaTorah, be'avodah zarah, as opposed to all other averas, HaKadosh Baruch Hu manish gam al hamachshava. When it comes to paganism, when it comes to idolatry, when it comes to this kind of infidelity against Hashem, when it comes to this kind of corruption of a way of life, even machshava, even ill thoughts in this regard, are worthy of consequence. And so Hashem responds, and Hashem responds quite harshly. What the people were doing was basically they were being disloyal to Hashem and sowing the seeds of corruption in society. Because ultimately, a world in which there is no cognizance of Hashem is a world that will implode on itself. And that's not something we can wait for. People did all types of terrible things that we spoke about just now. That what is the significance of Be'aznei Hashem? And I think for us, the message has to be that we should always feel ourselves Be'aznei Hashem, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is right there, right next to us. And that gives us, on the one hand, a sense of intimacy, and on the other hand, it gives us a sense of the presence, of the divine presence in our lives, which makes me think twice, perhaps before stepping off and committing an avera, violating my own pledge of loyalty to Dvar Hashem. Having a sense that Hashem is right here with me gives me an understanding that challenges me to realize that everything I have is a blessing, and I'm not really entitled to it. And Be'aznei Hashem finally should challenge me not only to do the actions and behave in the ways that are expected of somebody who is a refined human being, but challenge me to go deeper, even on an internal level, within my thoughts, within my heart, within my soul, to try to be the person that I hopefully express to the world around me. Now, Kadosh Baruch Hu bless us with a cognizance, an understanding, an ability to achieve the message of Be'aznei Hashem. Good Shabbos to all.